can't.
Hello, everybody. Can we hear me? Good to go? Cool. All right. We're a quorum. All right, we will begin this meeting. At this time, I would like to call this meeting to order. Today is February 24th, Thursday, 2022, and this is a meeting of the Rent Stabilization Commission for the City of West Hollywood. Who would like to say Pledge of Allegiance? I'm going to go with Commissioner Topshian because you have the nice background there for us. If you could lead us, please.
Thank you, Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Topshin. I appreciate that. Mr. Secretary, may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Harris.
Here.
Commissioner Kirpies.
I'm here.
Commissioner Maggio.
I'm here.
Commissioner Montemayor.
I'm here.
Commissioner Topshin.
Here.
Vice Chair Copeland.
Here.
Chair Marks.
Present. We have a quorum. Thank you very much. Has everyone had a chance to look over the agenda for tonight? I see head nods. Any motions?
I make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
Second.
Sorry, I lost my background here, but I'm going to try to fix that.
All righty. Can we have a roll call, please? I think I heard a second as well.
Commissioner Harris.
Aye.
Commissioner Kirpies.
Aye.
Commissioner Maggio.
Aye.
Commissioner Montemayor.
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin. Vice Chair Copeland.
Aye.
Chair Marks.
Aye. We have a motion passed there. Commissioner Topshin, we
Aye.
visually. There we go.
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. We also have the minutes from last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look those over? I see head nods. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
There we go.
Second.
And a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Harris.
Aye.
Commissioner Kirpies.
Aye.
Commissioner Maggio.
Aye.
Commissioner Montemayor.
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin.
Aye.
Vice Chair Copeland.
Aye.
Chair Marks.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Do we have any public comment for this evening?
You may have one. The number doesn't look familiar. I'll admit them now.
Okay, wonderful. All right, it looks like we have 310-309-9003 on the line. Are you here for public comment this evening? You can unmute yourself.
Caller, you can press *6 to unmute yourself.
*6 if you'd like to unmute yourself. There you go. Are you here for public comment?
Yes, hi, this is Dr. Stelius with Maroon Society.
Yes, you may go ahead with your public comment.
Thank you. Hi, I wanted to give a brief notification to all on the call that the City of West Hollywood is currently conducting a needs assessment for social services. As many of you may know, each year the city spends about $5 million or invests about $5 million in social services. This includes housing, substance use, sexual health, reproductive health, and the list goes on. So this is a needs assessment to determine any barriers that people may face, any perceptions that people have about current social services, as well as getting their feedback about potential services that may be of value to them. It's really important that we get a broad spectrum of feedback from all community members in West Hollywood so that we can address the needs of the community and provide recommendations which will be used for the next 3 years of the funding cycle for these services. I would like to share a link or ask that you share the link with those who are on the call. That can also be shared with individuals that are West Hollywood community members. And with that, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you again.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much for your public comments. Mr. Secretary, do we have any other further public comments so far?
No further public comment.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. Manager's report, Mr. Holub.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. Jonathan Hollowburn, Stabilization Manager, and this is the look ahead and Manager's report. Tonight, you have one appeal before you. Also, you'll be giving input on the social services priorities. There's been a change in the schedule of the upcoming appeals. I-152 will actually be on March 24th, and D-4626 will be at the next meeting, and 462 will probably be on the 14th, but I'm not sure yet. No other appeals scheduled at this time. The council passed the RSO amendments on second reading at its Tuesday meeting. Those were the amendments that you recommended to council in early January. There will be more to come from the division for your consideration. So those will wind up on the agenda shortly, I'm sure. I did receive a report from Betzetic that there has been a slight increase in the number of eviction cases that they are actively working on. The rate had been at about 0 to 2, but there were 6 new cases this past week. So there is a upward trend presently. We'll see if that continues. And as always, just a reminder that housingiskey.com is still accepting applications for those tenants who are in arrears. And that's ongoing. That's for rental arrears for COVID-related reasons since the beginning of the pandemic. And that also includes utilities. So anyone who's experiencing issues with paying their rent should visit www.housingiskey.com. That concludes my report. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Commissioner Kirby?
Yes, thank you for that report. Do we know of those cases that are being or eviction cases filed? Do we know the reasons that are listed?
No, I don't have that information, but I can find out. I'll follow up with Betzetic and see if we can get some more information about whether they're non-payment or something else.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, other questions? I don't see any. Mr. Holub, I do have one myself. When you say their averaging was 0 to 2 and now we're at 6, is that per a certain amount of time or is that in between?
That was the weekly reports I was getting.
Wonderful. Okay, so 0 to 2 per week, but we had 6 this week, but we don't know if that's an anomaly or a trend yet.
Right.
So you will happily keep us informed.
Of course.
Okay, wonderful. All right, thank you for that report. We appreciate it. Okay, moving on. Commissioner comments. Who would like to tell us things? Yes, Commissioner Maggio.
Yes, I would like, Mr. Chair, for us to adjourn this evening's meeting in honor of the people of Ukraine.
Thank you for that. All right, any other comments? I do not see any. All right, we will move on to our one and only appeal tonight. Tonight we have D-4627 before us. This is the property located at 7548 Lexington Avenue, unit number 9. Mr. Secretary, do we have representatives for both parties here?
We have the landlord. The tenant is not present.
Okay, thank you for that. We are going to start off with staff report from our legal counsel, Mr. Natalizio.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening to also the Vice Chair and Commissioners. To everyone else, my name is John Natalizio, and I am the legal counsel to the Rent Stabilization Commission for the city. This appeal was filed by the tenant, Andrew Johnson, in response to the hearing examiner's decision denying his rent reduction application regarding a living room air conditioner, which he alleged was not cooling properly. The application alleges that there is an issue with the compressor and that the air conditioner blows cold air, shuts off, and then begins blowing hot air. The tenant moved into the unit in May of 2020. And in October of 2020, a new in-wall air conditioner was installed in the unit. The landlord estimated that the living room, which is where this subject air conditioner is located, is approximately 260 to 280 square feet, while the tenant alleges that the living room is approximately 180 square feet, with the adjacent kitchen being slightly smaller. According to the landlord, the air conditioner produces a maximum output of 14,000 BTUs, which the landlord contends is enough to cool a 400 to 450 square foot room. The landlord has sent a technician to inspect the air conditioning unit on at least 3 occasions, and each time it was found to be working properly. Tenant alleges that while a new unit was installed, it still continues to fail to adequately cool the living room sufficiently. A decision was issued which denied the tenant's application. The hearing examiner determined that the air conditioning is clearly a protected housing service and that the landlord has a duty to maintain the air conditioner in good working order. The hearing examiner found that tenant failed to show by preponderance of the evidence that a rent adjustment should be granted. The hearing examiner found that while tenant testified credibly that his air conditioner is not cooling properly, he did not establish that the landlord had failed to maintain the appliance in good working order. Tenant filed his appeal decision. The appeal claims that the decision is not reasonably supported by the findings made or the evidence in the record. And specifically, the tenant alleges that the technician enlisted by the landlord is not a certified air conditioning technician, and he challenges the methodology used in testing his air conditioning unit. Staff has reviewed the appeal record and recommends reversing the hearing examiner's decision. The hearing examiner correctly points out that there are two issues that need addressing in this case. First, whether the air conditioner is maintained in a good working order as required in the RSO. Second, whether tenant's housing service has been discontinued or substantially reduced. Here, since the tenancy began in 2020, a housing service is defined as services listed on the unit's re-registration form and any other service actually provided by the landlord or agreed to by the landlord and tenant. And as the hearing examiner notes, air conditioning was identified as a landlord supplied service on the 1985 registration forms. However, despite identifying these two issues, staff believes that the hearing examiner only analyzed the issue of whether the air conditioner was in good working order. Staff believes that the hearing examiner should have analyzed whether an air conditioner that is not properly cooling a unit is a substantial reduction in the housing service. Staff believes that had the hearing examiner analyzed this issue, he would have granted a rent decrease. Staff's reasoning for this is as follows. The hearing examiner admits or acknowledges that tenant demonstrated that his air conditioner is not cooling properly. Regardless of whether the air conditioner is mechanically in good working order, providing an air conditioner that adequately cools the relevant portion of the unit in which it is located is the housing service. The definition of a housing service includes services actually provided by the landlord. Beyond the fact that air conditioning is on the registration form, landlord actually provided the service of providing an air conditioner to cool tenant's living room. If just providing the air conditioner unit was the sole analysis, then landlords could simply find the cheapest, smallest units and install them without regard to how they actually function in the context of providing the service of cooling. When looking at air conditioning as a housing service, the evidence in the record supports the position that a housing service is being substantially reduced. On this basis, staff believes the hearing examiner erred by failing to consider whether the air conditioner's inability to cool the unit's living room resulted in a substantial reduction in the housing service, and the record lacks substantial evidence to support the decision. Staff therefore recommends reversing the hearing examiner's decision. Should the commission agree with staff's recommendation, staff would further recommend a rent decrease value of $30. The valuation guidelines for air conditioning provide a range of $8 to $91. And because only the living room and potentially the kitchen is affected, and tenant has air conditioning in his 2 bedrooms, staff believes that it's reasonable to divide the maximum amount, $91, by 3, which represents the 3 air conditioners in the unit, and award tenant a rent decrease of $30. Therefore, based upon the above, staff recommends adopting resolution RSC 22-609. You as the commission have the power to affirm, reverse, modify, or remand the appeal decision of the hearing examiner. The commission reviews the hearing examiner's decision under the substantial evidence standard, which requires the commission to make sure there is substantial evidence that reasonably supports the hearing examiner's decision, is credible and of solid value. If that evidence is found, the decision must be upheld, even if there is also evidence that could support a different outcome. The commission does not substitute its judgment for that of the hearing examiner or reweigh evidence. As it relates to questions of law, the commission applies an independent or de novo standard of review to the hearing examiner's conclusions of law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nalezio. Questions? Commissioner Topsy and Commissioner Kerpes.
Thank you. Mr. Natalizio, the ranges for the air conditioner 8 to 91, that is based on the previous guidelines, valuation guidelines, or it's the new updated one?
No, those are based on the previous guidelines, and the reasoning is because it's staff's position that the guidelines that were in effect at the time of the hearing examiner's decision should govern ultimately what the valuation guidelines should be.
Right, makes sense. I just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
Mr. Kerpes.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. Regarding your report just now, you used two phrases that I have a question about. The first one was that the tenant gave credible evidence. Was that based upon what the hearing examiner stated, or your conclusion from reading the report?
No, that's my understanding. Well, my understanding of reading the hearing examiner's decision is that the hearing examiner found the tenant's testimony about the air conditioner not cooling properly to be credible.
And would it be your analysis that he also found that the landlord's testimony was also credible?
Yeah, I don't think that there was. I don't think testimony for either party was questioned by the hearing examiner.
Okay, thank you. And then the second part of that I have I think is a little bit bigger issue is, so you mentioned that to analyze, that the hearing examiner didn't analyze what the cost or the value of not cooling the room would be, right?
Well, I guess in terms of cost,
Sorry, not the cost. So you made a statement that said analyzing whether that the hearing examiner failed to analyze, and I believe you were mentioning failed to analyze the issue of not cooling the room to the sufficient level.
Correct.
So to analyze that, there wouldn't you have to believe or assume or consider that to be the fact?
Well, I see what you're saying. Yes. Well, and I think the hearing examiner does say that, I believe. So let me just go up real quick in my note. Part of what the decision says is that the tenant, and this is a quote, demonstrated that his air conditioner is not cooling properly. So at least from reading the hearing examiner's position on this, is that he did believe that the unit was not, the air conditioning unit was not cooling properly. And to that effect, I think that the hearing examiner therefore had at least a basis to rely on the tenant's testimony.
When you're quoting from the hearing examiner, are you referring to the finding of fact that number 3, Mr. Johnson was unable to get the room cool when he runs the air conditioner? Is that what you're referring to? Or was there a direct statement that you just read?
Yeah, sorry, give me 1 second. I'll find it for you, Commissioner Kirby. Just give me 1 second. So on it's page 25 of the packet, and it's page 4 of the actual decision. The third paragraph under analysis, it starts with Mr. Johnson demonstrated that his air conditioner is not cooling properly. Or the second sentence being, unfortunately, he did not establish that the reason, blah, blah. So that's where I was getting that quote from.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Additional questions, commissioners? I do not see any. Thank you, Mr. Nalezio. All right, it looks like we only have a representative from the landlord, which is MCM Property Management with us. Is that Barbara Jagger?
It is. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
I can make, yes, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. I'll explain how this will work and then we'll get into your testimony. Since the tenant is not here, you're going to have 5 uninterrupted minutes to state your case. When you start, please state your name, your city of residence for the record, and then you will proceed with your comments. Please remain on topic. The only information you can share will be about the appeal topic. New evidence cannot be considered by this commission. You may only discuss issues that were raised at the hearing or evidence submitted to the hearing examiner. Any questions?
No.
All right, wonderful. And I have a question here from Vice Chair Copeland or a comment.
Hi, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just recognizing I was not aware before that the landlord's representative happens to be a neighbor of mine. So my question is, although we don't know each other well, we know each other well enough to speak at this time. Should I recuse myself from this or perhaps
Are we
I
a
need to ask
neighbor?
Mr. Natalizio?
I'm
I
sorry.
believe so. Yeah,
Okay,
I believe so. Do you live on Hayworth?
I do.
Okay, yes. Next door
It's not
building.
going to be an issue. You won't have to recuse yourself.
Okay, I
You'll
just want to be
see.
sure. I need to disclose just to be sure. Mr.
No, but
Natalizio, who is
I'm going to
that?
make this very easy for everyone.
But we'll have our legal counsel weigh in here real quick. Mr. Natalizio.
Yeah, no, Vice Chair Copeland, simply being neighbors with a party would not be grounds for a recusal for any sort of conflict or something.
I
like
didn't think so, but I wanted to verify that.
that. Oh, thank you for disclosing that.
No problem. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt you. May go ahead.
Nope.
You did not. That's all right. That's I appreciate your integrity.
All right.
And forgive me for not recognizing. I'm so sorry.
All righty. So like I said, you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Please state your name, your city of residence. After you do that, your 5 minutes will start and you can go ahead.
My name is Barbara Yeager, and I'm the general manager of MCM Property Management. And I'm here tonight in good faith. I'm a little nervous. I don't like public speaking very much, but so bear with me because I'm actually here. I'm here to tell you good things and what I object to. In good faith, we're going to resolve this issue. We disagree with the logic of the staff report on the analysis of the hearing officer, but we are going to opt to, rather than take a decrease, even though we've already put in a new air conditioner, we're again going to install a new air conditioner. And the reason we're going to do that is very simple. One, we've been trying to please the tenant, which is why we changed it in the first place. And contrary to the analysis in the report, we didn't put in the cheapest and smallest air conditioner we could find. We put in a 14,000 BTU for the living room. It's not supposed to cool the kitchen or any other area. It's supposed to cool the living room. And I estimated, just based on my own living space, that it would be about 280 square feet, but it is much smaller. It's 180 square feet. And it's about 12 by 15. So we put in, if you have the time and you want to look it up, a 14,000 BTU far exceeds any need of a 180 square foot living room. The problem here with the staff report, and I don't mean any disrespect, but it states in section 3 that the commission doesn't substitute its judgment for that of the hearing officer or reweigh the evidence, and that the commission will not overturn the hearing officer's decision because they're bound by the hearing examiner's judgment on factual issues. And my problem with that is that the staff analysis identified two issues that should be addressed. The first being whether the air conditioner was maintained in good working order, which we already know because we've been out there many times, and the owner installed a new air conditioner. But the second was whether the tenant's housing service was discontinued or substantially reduced. Now, the problem is that there was no analysis done of why the air conditioner was not cooling properly. And when we submitted evidence, week after week, we went out there and took pictures, and he was running his AC with the windows open. And we were testing the air conditioner, and we found that it was actually cooling all the way to 60 degrees if he closed the windows. However, we concede one point, and it's very important. When we installed the AC, the electrician who did so did not provide the user manual to the tenant, which would have informed him that if you set the thermostat too low, because it's not going to run continuously. New ones have energy savers on them. They run, then they cut off, and they let, for energy efficiency, they let the temperature be static, and then it kicks on again. Well, we didn't tell him you can't set the AC to 60 degrees. And by not doing that, we think what happened, we think he set it too low because he told us he set it very low, and it froze up. And when an AC like that freezes, it forms an ice block inside, and then it cannot function properly. So we are going, I actually didn't know about the appeal until about the 18th last week. I spoke to the owner, and he doesn't want him to be unhappy, and he doesn't want the rent reduction. So we're going to give him a new AC.
That's your time.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Commissioners, questions for Ms. Yeager? Commissioner Topsheen and then Commissioner Ayers.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, good evening, Ms. Yeager. Just, I want to correct for the record the statement you made. It's not the staff reports states that the replaced air conditioner is the cheapest or smallest unit. It says if just providing the air conditioner unit was the basis for for sole reason or for the basis for declining the rent decrease. So then the landlord could have just simply purchased the smallest or the cheapest air conditioner. So that's just wanted to correct the record.
Yes, but we didn't do that.
Right. You didn't. It's not, that's what the staff report says. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. But that's for future landlords, he says.
Noted.
In the staff report, it says another landlord could do that, but this landlord didn't.
All right, Commissioner Ayers.
Yeah, Ms. Yeager, I'm just curious about the layout of the apartment, and I understand that the unit in question is supposed to be cooling just the living room, but there's a kitchen that's adjacent. Is there
On the other side.
Okay, so is there a wall or something?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just curious if it was open air or what. That clarifies things for me.
No.
Thank you.
Commissioners, other questions? I do not see any. All right, Ms. Yeager, thank you for your testimony. You can go back on mute. We are going to enter our deliberations now.
I also want to thank you for being patient with me.
Of course, you did a great job. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, commissioners, who would like to begin? And Ms. Yeager, if you can go on mute, that would be wonderful. There you go. You got it. All right, Commissioner Kerpes, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the recommendation that's in front of us this evening. because I feel that it is a direct, we would be directly overturning and replacing our judgment of the evidence in place of the hearing examiners. I do understand the point about the hearing examiner making the statement that there wasn't enough evidence to establish the breach of the landlord's obligation to maintain the appliance. But I don't see that as the threshold. Like there was nothing in the record that gives me the impression that the landlord believed or felt that there was a preponderance of the evidence that the room temperature was not reaching what the room temperature should reach based upon the air conditioner. I questioned Mr. Natalizio about this earlier, and he referenced the page 4, the 3rd paragraph. But if you continue on in that paragraph, it says the record bespeaks doubt that the air conditioner, which is only a year old, does not operate as it's supposed to. It has been checked at least 3 times, October 20th of this year, and has been found working each time. So that's a statement that you would make about whether the air conditioner is working. Like none of us, I don't think it's reasonable to assume that the hearing examiner is going to make a statement that the air conditioner works properly simply because it turns on and the fan blows. So if anything, I think if the commission thinks that the hearing examiner erred, I think we should send it back and have an inspector go out and look. I just don't feel comfortable with the commission replacing the judgment of the hearing examiner in this case, because then we should do it in all the cases, especially in a case like this. It's so unclear. I do think the hearing examiner made this more difficult for us by placing in the finding of facts, number 3, Mr. Johnson has been unable to get the room cool when he runs the air conditioner. But then he follows it up by the fact number 4, service calls to unit 9 last year led to the conclusion that the air conditioner does achieve the desired coolness. So the hearing examiner could have done a better job, I think, at writing up his decision, but I don't feel that there's anything in there that warrants us to replace the hearing examiner's judgments on the facts.
Thank you, Commissioner Kerpes. Who else would follow that? Commissioner Ayers and then Commissioner Topshian.
Yeah, it is a concern of mine that the tenant allegedly runs the air conditioner with the windows open. I think that would get in the way of the air conditioner being able to properly cool the living room. It's an unusual practice, but if that is what the tenant is doing, I don't think that the landlord or the unit can be blamed for its ineffectiveness. Also, Ms. Yeager brings up a good point that the tenant was never given the user manual when they replaced the unit that he had. I think that if they do put in a new unit and give him give the tenant the user manual, that is basically giving him the responsibility of properly operating the unit. And that may resolve things. The ball would be in the tenant's court to properly use the air conditioner. This one's a little tough for me because I think that the tenant may have been partly at fault as to the ineffectiveness of the air conditioning unit that's currently in there. But if he were provided with a user manual, that may have helped him operate it properly. And I know this commission is not in a position to just waive the appeal. We have to make some determination. And then if the landlord does replace the unit and give the tenant a user manual, then they can go through the compliance process of eliminating any reduction in rent that is put into place if that is what we decide to do. But those are my thoughts. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go on this, so I welcome other commissioner comments.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Topchian.
Thank you, Chair. I try to be brief. So what do we have here? We have the fact that the landlord in good faith replaced the tenant's air conditioner with a brand new unit. That's one of the arguments for the examiners, for the hearing examiner's decision. The second one was that the air conditioner was inspected 3 times, and there are the dates for the inspections, and that's what also considered by the hearing examiner. And the third point that the examiner made to reach that conclusion, that the air conditioner was working as intended and was designed to turn on and off upon reaching designated temperatures. So, well, clearly, what I am reading here, and when I read the summary and the analysis, the examiner clearly didn't consider the tenant's credible testimony in regards to the air conditioner's inability to cool the unit, which to cool to that degree that the tenant was mentioning. I don't remember exactly what was the degree that he set for the cooling, but it seems like the hearing examiner it did not consider that. I wouldn't say obviously disregarded, but because there is a testimony about that, and the hearing examiner considered that when received the testimony, but it was not considered when the examiner was making the determination on denying the rent decrease. So I think the staff is not suggesting clearly for us to substitute the judgment or the decision, but the staff is saying the fact that the air conditioner was replaced, solely that fact that the new unit was replaced, and that the landlord conducted or conducted inspections, it doesn't mean that the air conditioner is properly functioning. So that part the examiner kind of missed, did not consider or ignored, and that is where the error occurred. So it may seem like we are substituting our judgment, the examiner's decision by our judgment or decision, but it's not that. So the commission always makes such decisions when we have grounds to do so. So we should not be be concerned that wait a minute, the commission is going to change the outcome of the case. That's within the authority of this commission. So we can do that, and we can establish the rent decrease. But we need to make it so that we have the ground for that for such change of the outcome. So here, I hear the concerns addressed by the property management, and I hear the concerns of my fellow commissioners, but I am convinced that the staff's recommendation is correct, because what I see here is that the hearing examiner erred by failing to consider whether the air conditioner's inability to cool the unit resulted in a substantial reduction of housing service. That was not considered by the examiner. Should have that considered, I don't know what would have been the outcome, but that was clearly not considered. I mean, should have that considered, clearly there wouldn't been a rent reduction determined. Let me rephrase that. But that was not clearly considered. So, and that's why staff is recommending for us to correct that decision. So I don't feel bad, and I don't feel we're doing something that we shouldn't do. Clearly, that's within our position, our authority to make this decision. And if the commission decides to move forward with the recommendation, which I'm supporting the staff's recommendation on this matter, so then I feel comfortable with a $30 rent decrease because there is a good analysis and justification for that $30 provided by staff, and I appreciate that. And also I heard the manager's statement that in good faith, the owner is prepared to, resolve this matter anyways, and then there could be what we call it, request for determination filed right once that issue is resolved. So I see that was, I'm going to support the staff's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for those comments. Other comments? Commissioner Maggio, and then Commissioner Montemayor, and then Commissioner Kirby.
I'm going to keep it simple. I can't imagine an air conditioner working correctly or properly if the windows are left open. I mean, I think the process probably has to be started over. And I think I'm more inclined to agree with Commissioner Kirby that maybe we need to send this back and have the process start over again so that there's not a rent penalty. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Montemayor.
Commissioner Maggio stole the words out of my mouth. I agree. I'm inclined to support Commissioner Kirby's recommendation. I think we need to send this back. I'm not comfortable with staff's recommendation. I think when you have a window that's open, you're not going to cool a room. It's pretty simple. So I want to make sure we start this process on the right foot again, and I'd like it to go back so that it can be fully considered. That's where I stand.
Thank you, Commissioner Kirby.
I'll let someone else speak first if they want to. Otherwise, I was just going to respond to Commissioner Topchian. So if nobody else, it's going to refer to page 4, again, of the hearing examiner's decisions, page 25 of our packet. It's the second paragraph of the analysis, and it reads that air conditioning is clearly a protected housing service. So the hearing examiner understands that issue. The issue is how much to credit the tenant's testimony that the appliance is not working properly versus the landlord's and his agent's testimony that it does work, but is being compromised by Mr. Johnson's actions, and referring to the windows. So in this paragraph alone, if the hearing examiner is only looking at whether the air conditioner is properly maintained and turns off and on, then the whole conversation about windows is irrelevant, because the windows would only have to do with the temperature of the room. So the hearing examiner right there is breaking down, saying, look, both sides have testified, which he hears in all of his other hearings. He hears one side and the other side, and then they determine the facts. And that's what I believe that he did in this case. And I think that the reference to the windows, he doesn't say that that's the cause, but the fact that he's even considering it, or allowing or interpreting that, the way I interpret that is that he is also looking at the temperature of the room.
Other commissioner comments? Vice Chair Copeland.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm listening to we're going over what was presented at the hearing. The tenant testified that I believe his quote was, I'm not a fool, that he did not leave the windows open when the air conditioner was running, only when it was off. And I guess there was some conflict there. But regardless of that, the hearing examiner said, and I quote, the tenant demonstrated that his air conditioner is not cooling properly. So he took in all of the evidence and then he made that determination. So I understand why staff then said that he should have analyzed whether an air conditioner that's not properly cooling, because he just said that it was demonstrated that it was not properly cooling, is a substantial reduction in a housing service. We've had cases I know where there's been heaters that have been put in living rooms, but they were not sufficient to heat the room. And there's been a reduction ordered for that. So I certainly see where staff is coming from. I don't think we're reweighing the evidence. I would have liked better clarity in this decision also, in the report, a little stronger report myself, but I do see that the hearing examiner weighed all the evidence, and including the discrepancy about the windows open or closed. And he quoted in his decision that the tenant had demonstrated that his air conditioner is not cooling properly. So if that was his determination, then he should have analyzed whether that not properly cooling, as he stated that he found, was a substantial reduction in a housing service. And history has found that a reduction in heating or cooling or not properly has been historically worthy of a rent reduction. So I understand where staff is coming from. I also, because there's not a lot of clarity in this report, I also have no problems with a remand. So whatever my fellow commissioners, how they feel about this, I'd love to hear further comment on that.
I will, thank you. I'll throw my comments in here briefly. Vice Chair Copeland is exactly where I fall. I think the facts support the staff recommendations decision. I think Vice Chair Copeland laid it out well and correctly, in my opinion. I do know we go back and forth. Sometimes the hearing examiner writes a really well done analysis. Sometimes they give us half of what we want and the rest is missing. I think this is one of those cases where it could have been more clear. So I'm content with a remand to have the hearing examiner figure out exactly what they were trying to say to us. And as others have pointed out, this might be moot. As Ms. Yeager has stated, you know, if the tenant gets a new air conditioner in the near future and he is happy and he gets the manual, and whether he is a window open guy or not, he now knows that the windows stay closed, whether that's true or not, it will be in the manual. You know, we're not here to predict what the future is going to happen, because, you know, that stuff may not happen. But I think if we remand this, let that go through the process for the hearing examiner, and regardless of what happens with Ms. Yeager and the tenant here, seeing what the hearing examiner actually meant is good. And with instruction from us that more is always better, clarity is always better, you know, because we're working off what the hearing examiner gives us, and he doesn't know exactly what we need to do our job if we don't say that in our remand sometimes. So a learning opportunity here on a remand, I think, is appropriate for the facts and also helpful to the commission, and might just solve this and tie it with a bow. So other comments?
Chair, if I may, very quickly, although I supported the staff's recommendation, but based on the discussion among the fellow commissioners, and I would support the motion to remand instead of reverse. I don't see a problem with that, and I just wanted to state that for the record. Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other comments or motions? Anyone want to make a motion?
I guess I'll move to
Chair,
remand.
sorry, Chair Martz, can I just ask a question real quick?
You sure can.
So a remand is fine if that's where the commission is going. If that's what Commissioner Kirkes was going to recommend. I just was hoping to get some clarity from my perspective, because I'm going to have to bring the resolution back for next meeting. So specifically, the council is going to remand, sorry, the commission is going to remand, and what, for purposes of clarifying whether there was a substantial reduction in a housing service. Would that
Whether the hearing examiner just weighed that evidence and included that in his analysis or in his decision.
And would the
But I mean,
commission also want a inspection of the air conditioner as well?
that would be helpful. I mean, if somebody from the city, a third party, could go out and just spend 20 minutes doing whatever they
So
need to
that's
do.
within the, so that's within the power of the commission to order a remand and order an inspection of the air conditioning unit. the hearing examiner would just need instruction about what the inspector would be seeking to obtain through the inspection.
To establish whether the room temperature is affected? Anyone?
Commissioner Topshin and then Commissioner Maggio.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Exactly, to establish the room temperature. But from a previous case, I remember it was a discussion with the inspectors. I can't recall exactly, but 15, 20 minutes is not going to be sufficient to, right, just, just to mention that 15, 20 minutes will not be sufficient for the inspector to determine properly, correctly, if the air conditioner, if the temperature will go down. So I heard something about 30 minutes, but it depends on the, how large is the room or the area to be cooled down. And I don't know, so that I'd like to make sure that the inspector will be aware during the visit that should not be there for less than 30 or maybe 40 minutes to see the correct temperature. So otherwise it will not be conclusive again. And regarding the remanding, I think if it's determined that the reduction has occurred, then I think the question would be whether the $30 decrease should stay or the examiner will come up with his or her value, which the examiner may use a different justification. And I kind of like the justification provided by the staff. So I want to make sure that it's not going to go, below 30. So I just wanted to also recommend that if there will be a rent reduction determined. Thank you.
Commissioner Maggio.
Well, I don't want to sound inane, but I want us to make note that when there is an inspection, that the inspector is very aware that windows perhaps were open before and that all windows are closed in the apartment. It's a brand new air conditioning. It's 1,400 units. It really should do the job. This is a new revelation that windows are open. Of course, an air conditioner is not going to work. And I'm sure even a user guide, does a user guide say, no, make sure all the windows are closed? I think it tells you how to work it mechanically, but common sense would say to close those windows. So I suppose because that's been an important point that we emphasize that. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Commissioner Kirby?
I would just say that I would not support us keeping the, although I think the staff analysis was very good about the dollar amount, I think that we're dealing with a whole different set of, or we potentially could be dealing with a whole set of different facts when the hearing examiner reviews the report from the inspector. So I would leave that up to the hearing examiner again. And if the parties disagree with it, they can appeal it.
And I would add one more wrinkle that I would add that the parties, the hearing examiner and the inspection may not need to occur if it's already been replaced. So I see Ms. Yeager putting her hands up in agreement or something, exasperation probably with us, but this might be moot. So I think we have, Mr. Natalizio, do you have any other clarifying questions for us?
I guess just for clarifying for the commission and maybe to help out with a motion. And so my understanding is there essentially be three things that the commission will be seeking to remand. The first is remanding the decision back to the hearing examiner to clarify the decision as to whether or not the air conditioning unit sufficiently cools the living room and whether that was considered by the hearing examiner. Second, ordering an inspection of the air conditioner with instruction to close windows, as well as ensure that the inspection duration is no less than 30 minutes. And then third, if a rent reduction is warranted, to then determine a valuation that the hearing examiner deems sufficient. Is that accurate?
I think that's accurate. I would also just add that if it's determined that it's been replaced, that no inspection is necessary.
Thank you.
Does that penalize the tenant in any way, though? Based upon our new regulations?
Well, I mean,
I don't want either party to be disadvantaged based upon our new regulations if the date or something, just because something's replaced. I mean, I don't know if it does or not. It would be significant or would be minor, but still, I just don't want anybody to be.
no, I guess talking out loud here, I mean, if the, the decision is only relating to the current air conditioner in the unit, at the time of the decision. So if by the time this remand inspection occurs,
Okay.
it's a new air conditioning unit, that's a good point.
But no,
It's
I
really
forgot.
different.
We're not actually determining whether the $30 stands or not. The $30 doesn't exist right now. So there's no
Right.
reductions. There's no harm. Okay.
There's no rent reduction right now, no.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone
So
want
I'll motion that.
a motion? Does everyone understand the motion? To the best of our abilities? Okay, any seconds?
I'll second that.
I hear a second.
Second the motion.
We have multiple seconds. Maybe we have a roll call, please, Mr. Secretary.
Commissioner Ayers,
Aye.
Commissioner Kirby's,
Aye.
Commissioner Maggio,
Aye.
Commissioner Montemero,
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Copeland,
Aye.
Chair Marks.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you.
Then sorry, Chair Martz, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead.
I got lost in the other issue. I think that there also needs to be a motion to instruct staff to return with a resolution for the next meeting, codifying the motion just adopted by the commission, because the previous motion was just setting forth the terms of the remand.
I think that would be just a friendly amendment or an amendment to the motion.
So I'll reconsider the motion we just made, and I'm going to vote against it, and then I'm going to create a new one with that in it. Can we? Is that?
Do we need an official roll call or?
I think if the secretary can see everybody, and I think there can be an A or nay, and as long as there's no confusion, I think it's fine.
Yes. Motion as amended, everyone approves. 7
Aye.
ayes.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, good. Motion passes again on the amended motion. Thank you, Mr. Natalizio. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Ms. Yeager, I hope you understand what went on here. Thank you for your patience with us. We appreciate your time this evening. And if you do have questions, you can direct them to the Rent Stabilization Division at the City of West Hollywood, rsd@weho.org, rsd@weho.org, or call City Hall. Thank you. All right. We now have a presentation before us.
Yes, hello again, Commission. I'll be introducing our Social Services Manager, David Juni, in just a moment. I've been asked before that to share with you the link to the needs assessment survey that was mentioned in public comment. So just give me a sec to share my screen. Here we go. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So you can see down near the bottom there, the two links, one for English, one for Spanish, w.eho.city/needs ENG for English, and w.eho.city/needs SPAN for Spanish. So those are the links. And with that, I'm very pleased to introduce David Jr., our Social Service Manager, who will seek your input on the social services priorities.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. As noted, I'm David Juni. I'm the manager of the City Social Services Division. And I'm also the staff liaison for the city's Human Services Commission. So this evening, the Rent Stabilization Commission will receive a presentation, brief, and provide input on social services priorities for the 2022 through 25 funding cycle. The City of West Hollywood provides social services to the community by contracting with nonprofit agencies to fulfill goals and initiatives identified through community studies and other forms of engagement. And the gentleman who spoke under public comment, Dr. Aaron Celius, is the lead for a consultant firm that we're currently working with to conduct a needs assessment of access to social services by community members of color. And this was an initiative put forward by the council last fall, and an example of how, when we release the RFP document, how we get as much input as possible about how we need to kind of reshape and shift according to the needs of the community and really call out services that perhaps we don't have in place. So just wanted, that was a kind of a perfect introduction for why I'm here tonight. So as mentioned, every 3 years, the city issues an RFP to provide social services. For reference, a list of currently funded social services agencies and programs, including a description of the services and the funding amount, was attached to this staff report. And I have it here tonight, and I just wanted to bring it up briefly, just to go over a few of the programs, kind of give the variety of programs that the city funds, and then if there's other folks on the call so they can see. So let me share my screen. There we go. Can you see that?
Yes.
And I won't obviously go through each one, just to show you the range. And this is the current list of funded programs. We work with the Alliance for Housing and Healing, that was formerly Aid for AIDS, to provide financial support to persons living with HIV and AIDS. We work with Essentia, one of our providers for services targeting our unhoused community members. And Essentia also is the agency that provides shelter beds for West Hollywood community members in need of shelter. Awakening Recoveries is one of the treatment facilities that the city contracts with. Bethesda Legal Services, as I think you're all familiar with, provides legal services for community members with an emphasis on housing and eviction defense, benefits advocacy. Bethesda has really, I mean, they've always been a great partner, but through an allocation of emergency funding, and as Jonathan mentioned earlier, they have brought on their eviction prevention and defense program. They've assisted over 200 community members who are either facing eviction or just maybe experiencing harassment or just uneasy about their housing situation. So, and this, just an FYI, we will be bringing at the second council meeting in March, we're going to be bringing a recommendation to extend this contract. As we all know, well, Jonathan noted that the actual number of cases has bumped up recently. So we want to keep this program in place for the time being. This is coming to council along with a recommendation to renew the CES contract as well. We work with Disability Community Resource Center, DCRC, to assist our community members living with disabilities. JFS, we have 3 separate contracts with them. The first is for our programming for seniors and for also community members living with disabilities. We have, through their nutrition program, home delivered meals. And then JFS SOVA is the food bank that's available to West Hollywood community members. We have a number of programs through the center: mental health services, senior services, sexual health, services targeting the transgender community, WeHo Life, which is condom distribution, youth services, primarily targeting our homeless, unhoused youth. More treatment services. We also provide health services through Men's Health Foundation, also through Planned Parenthood and through Saban Community Clinic. NCJW is another one of our agencies that has really stepped up during COVID, has provided emergency rental assistance for community members impacted financially, fiscally by COVID. Angel Food, I think we're all familiar with. Home delivered meals, also a big help during COVID. So it goes on. We've got Step Up on Second, who we always also work with for services for our unhoused, Tarzana Treatment Center, and then Trans Can Work and Trans Latina. As an example, we go out and we get this input, which we'll look for input from you tonight. The last funding cycle, when we released the RFP in 2019, we focused and called out that we really needed to bring on more services targeting our trans community. At the time, we had the contract through the Center TEEP, which is the Transgender Economic Empowerment Project. But know that this is, it's a vulnerable community and we needed to bring on more services. We got into these two new contracts after that RFP process, one with Trans Can Work, which is employment services, and Trans Latina Coalition, which joins our street outreach teams in meeting our unhoused trans community members and others on the street to bring them into service and offer case management. So anyway, I just wanted to give you kind of a sense of the variety of services that are currently provided through the city's contracts. And so as I mentioned, we're developing the RFP for the 2022-25 funding cycle. We're seeking input from a variety of sources. The commissions we go to are rent stabilization and public safety. We've been to all of the boards, and this year we went to the Social Justice Task Force and also went to the City Council's Subcommittee on Homelessness. So we actually wrap up this part of the input with our meeting here tonight. So we are asking, the Human Services Commission is asking your commission to review and discuss the questions that were included in the staff report, and I'll bring them up on my screen for review, and then to either designate your chair or an alternate to attend a meeting of the commission with the chairs from the other boards and commissions and the other advisory bodies at the next Human Services Commission meeting, which is March 8th, 2022. And what you will be doing is sharing the input that you received tonight at that meeting to the Human Services Commission. Once I receive input tonight, I will send a summary of the input to your representatives so they have that to reference at the meeting. So I'm going to close this up. I'm happy to answer any questions while I bring up the, I'm going to stop sharing while I bring up the next slide, which is going to be the questions.
David, I saw one hand, if you don't mind, from Commissioner Kirby.
Absolutely.
Great.
Hey, David, I just wanted to ask, this is kind of off the subject of what you're asking us tonight, but we see all these great programs. Some of them may be doing homeless outreach for different communities. Is there a way, or is there crosstalk or collaboration? Do these groups all come back together, the relevant ones come back together to talk about their clients and what services we have to offer in other areas?
So they do. I had mentioned that this last funding cycle, we brought on additional teams. I was mentioning the teams that are focusing on our trans community, but we brought on additional teams. We really wanted to have more of a presence for what we call street-based services. And so we've got contracts with 9 different agencies to provide their services on the street. They're all targeting different parts of the community and offering different services, but they do come together. The Corey Plank and the strategic initiatives, they hold the Homeless Collaborative meeting, which is every other month, bringing all those teams together to, share challenges, to bring resources to the table. The first meeting of that is open to all those providers. Public safety attends, the sheriffs attend, recreation attends, because as we know, the parks are impacted by unhoused community members and trying to assist unhoused community members. So the first half of that meeting is for that larger group, and then the second half is for the direct service providers and it's not open to the public, so they can share, more detailed information about individuals that they've been working with, and just try to, collaborate. Oh yes, I made a connection with this person, offered this. It would be great if this other team member, could meet with them. So yes, there is that collaboration. They meet every other month. The teams also they meet separate from the city. There are a number of the teams will get together. They go out together when they're, conducting outreach. So there's kind of, for some of them, there's strength in numbers. And there's also, at times there's some safety issues and they need to, go out in pairs. So yes, we have found, long answer for, there's a lot of collaboration between the contracted teams.
Great.
Thank you. Any other questions before we start reviewing the questions? And Chair Martz, if you could, once I go to the questions, if you could call on folks, because I can't see the hands up. So, and I will be busily taking notes.
Absolutely.
So, and it's different for commission, because your constituency, we reference your constituency. Basically that is the community for you. It doesn't really narrow down. We have that because obviously when we go to LGAB, we're specifically looking for input for the lesbian and gay community. Anyway, so don't feel constricted or wonder, well, who are you talking about with this constituency? But we know that you obviously have a lot of contact, you hear a lot of concern, and we definitely want to get your input from your perspective. So the first question is, what are the significant social services needs of the constituency your commission represents?
Who would like to jump in? David, if you want to read that one more time.
Sure. And I want to mention what's interesting this time or last time, housing was number one. When we went to all the boards last time around, we've seen shifts this time around. I mean, the fact is, this is the social services RFP, and we don't, develop housing, but we do contract, as you know. I mean, we reviewed them tonight. We contract with folks for homelessness prevention, to maintain folks in their housing, and then other supportive type services for housing. So it did make sense that we heard that. So once again, what are the significant social services needs of the constituency your commission represents? What do you hear? What do you see at your meetings that folks are still in need of, or maybe need more of? What have you heard?
Commissioner Maggio and then Commissioner Kirkes.
What comes to mind immediately for me is tenant harassment. And I think there needs to be more money funded for services to help and guide people with harassment. It's easy to frighten people, especially people who have no money, and they feel they need to fight back in some way. So they need those type of supportive services. Someone ready to go to and say, yes, we're going to be here and make sure that we're going to look into this harassment. We're going to help you with this harassment. Because people are afraid to come to speak up, because they're afraid they're going to get kicked out. They're going to get evicted, and I don't blame them. People talk to me about this a lot. Well, I'm not going to complain about something because I'm afraid. I'm afraid, and the owner's been threatening me. So I think we need more funding for harassment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kirkes.
Yeah, I would say kind of following up on that same thing, like just housing security. People are very concerned about housing security, whether that be rental assistance, legal counsel, dealing with evictions or tenant harassment, eviction protections. I think we're about ready to see a whole bunch, or, we don't know what's ahead of us with evictions. But then on the other side, not to pit tenant and landlord against each other, but the other side of that is also assistance for maintenance assistance for landlords, whether that be maintenance or through the programs that you are currently offer with the for many of the people in the disabled community that need or seniors with bars and stuff like that 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 are added, things like that. And then, the city, we put in place the retrofitting requirements for the buildings quite a few years ago. And I know that that's been delayed with COVID and stuff, but there was talk at that time that the council might look at ways of helping fund those things for landlords. And I don't know of any programs that have been started because of to help landlords do that. And that goes to, preserving our stock of our affordable housing.
Thank you.
Other commissioner answers? Commissioner Ayers.
The commissioners already talked about some of the things on my mind that I hear, like needing legal counsel. No, and a lot of renters, they don't know what legal representation or legal guidance even means. So I know we have social services like Tzedek and others out there, but I think that there's a disconnect where we need communication to our citizens, our residents, to let them know exactly what getting those services entail and who it's open to. That they don't have to be destitute, they just have to be housing insecure, and their landlord is doing things that they're not sure is right. That's really, and so honestly, I think the city's doing a lot of great things and has a lot of these great services. It's a matter of communicating them out. I know that the Rent Stabilization and Human Services Division is great about sending a newsletter out to people in rent stabilized housing. So they get a certain amount of communications directly from the city, but I don't think all residents get that information. So I'm big on communication, and I'm big on different forms of communication because people receive information, as you know, in different ways. Some people like the newsletter in the mailbox. Sometimes, people get educated through tweets and Instagram and social media type of things. I like when the city has little placards on the street that give little tips. So I'm big on directing our residents to the resources through a multi-platform. Different things reach different people.
Great, thank you.
Other commissioner comments to that first question? I will say mine and then Vice Chair Copeland. I agree with my fellow commissioners. Legal help, I can't emphasize enough. I used to do landlord tenant law and I'm still a lawyer, but there's just never enough money in it, especially for the people that need it the most. So I'm glad to see that the city is looking at extending Tzedek's contract, but even more so. I mean, if we had unlimited amounts of money, I think we could fill their offices daily with people that really need help, especially on housing and landlord tenants issues. So as much as we can boost that, I think that's extremely important, especially in the time of a pandemic. And we're going to see whatever happens with evictions and whatnot when things go forward. Another idea that I've had, which is on the housing platform, but a little bit off, is I like walk home services from the bars. It dovetails into safety with unhoused people. Whether we have a true rise in crime or not is a different story, but perception's reality, and people are nervous about being out and about more so than they used to be in the past. And we have our bike patrols and we have our sheriff's patrols, but walk home services, or even riding the trolley, might be something to try. We have different constituencies in our city who have different fears that all need to be addressed. So I think that's something that would be potentially helpful.
Chair Marks, can you say that again? What type of services in the bars?
Walk home. So, you know, in New York, in the back in the day, they had the angels or whatnot.
Right.
Safety patrols that are just volunteers that do nothing more than walk with you, because, you know, when I walk home from having some drinks, you know, there's Uber, there's the trolley, there's driving.
Right.
Sometimes I want to walk, but if I'm by myself, you know, maybe that's not a good idea. But if you have people walking with you, be in numbers, so might be something.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Copeland.
Yeah, I agree with everything that my fellow commissioners have brought up. Definitely legal services and harassment, as Commissioner Maggio mentioned, is still an issue and in very creative ways sometimes. And tenants are not sure that they think harassment is maybe one or two things, and there's a whole range of things that are considered harassment. And so definitely anything we can throw at that would be helpful. The other thing that I hear a lot about recently are there any types of, people want to know, are there any types of requirements or any types of grants to provide security, like buildings that do not, some of the older buildings, they do not have any gate at all, no coded gates, no driveway gates, and there's a lot of package theft and some prowling and things, and they don't feel as secure in their homes perhaps, and especially the seniors. So they ask, are there any ways we can get bars on our windows? Can we get a metal screen door? Some have no outside screen doors, just that anybody can walk right up and try to open their doors and so forth. And so they often ask about security, things like that. Is there a program in place in the city? Is there a requirement for buildings to be secure? And if there's not a requirement, could we incentivize maybe or provide grants to provide better security for some of these folks? So, but the harassment, the legal services definitely come up quite a bit. So I agree with all of that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We do, just an FYI, Commissioner Kirby's mentioned, we do have contracts with both JFS and with the Disabilities Community Resource Center to provide modifications to someone's unit or home, such as security bars, such as if it's someone who needs some modifications to their bathroom, if to make
Right.
their
But as far as the buildings themselves, like
Right.
the gate to prevent strangers from coming in, things like that is what they're asking about a lot lately because of the package thefts or the attempted entries into whatever door might be open, that kind of thing. So I know they do have some of what you just mentioned, but I'm not aware of anything that would provide or help landlords provide, maybe incentivize them or a tax break or anything to maybe encourage some of the better security for the older buildings in particular.
Right. Noted, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, other answers? I do not see any currently.
So we'll go to number 2. Have there been changes to service needs or service delivery for the constituency your commission represents? Do you see different needs over time? You see different ways that services are being delivered?
Commissioner Ayers?
Yeah, and this isn't really housing related, but I do know that Project Angel Food has their demand for during COVID for more meals has skyrocketed because now you have a lot of people who usually they serve people who are homebound because of illness, but now they're serving a new clientele of people who are homebound because they can't risk being exposed to COVID. So they're not necessarily ill, but they're vulnerable. And most of the people are elderly. So I do know that there is that going on. And God bless Project Angel Food because they've amped up to meet that need and taken on so many more clients. And it just, I'll leave it at that and let other commissioners weigh in.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in real quick before I forget what I was going to say. I think that COVID has really shifted the delivery of a lot of services and just things in general to the internet, Zoom services and whatnot. And I think we really need to be looking at, are we going to think we're going to go 100% back to the way things were? Beth Zedek, as an example, as a lawyer, you know, I used to have people in my office pretty often. Now everything is through my computer, and which is great because it improves access. You know, I used to have to go to court, drive to the airport, and, you know, sit for 4 hours. Now I can be on my screen. So access has improved in that way. But what I've also seen is with everyone, but especially our seniors, using the computer is extremely confusing. I shouldn't say this, but one of my coworkers, you know, I have to teach him Zoom every single time he uses it, and he's a senior. So as much as we're shifting our services, I know a lot of our older seniors and older people in general love to go to the post office, love to go and do physical things, partially just social reasons, but also get out and about. And if in this shift, I think we've lost a lot of the ability to deliver services to people that just don't know how to operate their phone or their computer. So, and I don't think, not West Hollywood, but just society has embraced that need. And as our population ages, that problem's not going to go away. So figuring out how to deliver the services, but also teaching people should be looked at. Okay, that concludes my comment. Glad I didn't forget. Commissioner Kirby's.
Yeah, I think you bring up a very good point. I mean, we don't have flyers anymore, and that's what we used to do instead of computers. We would do flyers, and we don't hand things to people anymore with COVID. But I also wanted to mention just kind of all the problems that we let's say all the problems that were identified 1 year, 3 years ago. I would say are most of them are just amplified now because of, you know, for example, for housing, you know, housing costs have only gone up since then, which puts pressure on landlords to get rid of their rent controlled tenants. It puts pressure on them or puts them at a position where they're maybe thinking about selling their building or LLCing it, whereas they weren't before. So all of the problems and all of the need for the things that we've already mentioned, I think are just amplified this year versus what it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Thank you. Other comments? Commissioner Ayers?
Yeah, and just the thing about with COVID and how service is delivered. And for instance, the Coalition for Economic Survival, you know, they had an office in Plummer Park. People can drop in, meet face to face, get advice. And I know they've shifted toward doing Zoom, which, you know, is as was mentioned, isn't always tenable for older people or just non-technical people. And the format is you have to make an appointment and then get on a Zoom. And that might be, you know, so I'm wondering how many other services are affected like that, where it's just becoming more difficult to get that connection to be had. And also, I was just curious about the food bank, because as I understand it, we used to have the food bank closer to West Hollywood. Now it's located farther away. And I'm wondering if that has become a barrier for our residents.
Yes, the JFS had a branch of SOVA, their food bank, in West Hollywood. It was the northeast corner of Santa Monica and La Brea.
Mm-hmm.
And it became too expensive. The lease was too expensive. We worked for years to bring that here because years ago, that branch was over by off of, I'm going to blank on you, Pan Pacific Park. It was right near Pan Pacific Park on, I want to say, Beverly. And we were very excited that they were able to find storefront in West Hollywood, which they had for, I would say, at least 5 or 6 years, and then just became, it was no longer affordable. So that was, that was a big loss. They do have the side in Pico Robertson, but you are correct. Then you've got transportation issues for folks who need to get there. So yes, you are correct. We had it within the city. That's true with a lot of our nonprofit organizations. It's expensive to be in West Hollywood. The fact is that most of the agencies that we contract with, their locations are outside of the city. Now, many of them will have a satellite, smaller space within West Hollywood, such as APLA Health and Wellness. They have a few different locations outside of the city, but they do also have a satellite office where they offer behavioral health and mental health services, which is at the West Hollywood Housing Corporation's building just north of Santa Monica on La Brea. So there's a few folks that have satellite offices, and there are a few folks who are located in West Hollywood, but it's not news to you that it's very expensive.
Commissioners, anything further?
Oh, can I just add, I wish that, and I know that our city staff in public facilities are not going to like this suggestion, but I wish we could use some of our city-owned property to house some of these services and bring them to the heart of West Hollywood, like in the old Aaron Brothers building, which is very, close to City Hall. And the city is probably, I think they're going to lease it to a gym or something like that, which is, the profitable thing to do, gives the city revenue. But another way to, add value to the city is by making our social services where people can get them. And I'll leave it at that.
And just to that point, and this isn't, it's not to counter it, but just to remind folks, obviously JFS is located in the city-owned facility at Plummer Park. We have Pathways, which is the preschool that's also at Plummer Park. We have JVS, which is our employment services at the county facility, the library. We have our 12-step programs at the Worley building on Robertson. And we have a space that used to be the, years ago, we had an adult day healthcare center right across from Plummer Park. It's called Partners. And we still have that building that houses our Disability Community Resource Center. Block by Block is over there. So we have some, but yes, I hear you. It's not to counter what you're saying. We are always keeping our eye out for other possibilities to bring folks into West Hollywood.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Maggio, I saw your hand.
I agree totally with Commissioner Ayers. In fact, I was going to suggest that. I mean, why aren't we using those facilities, City Hall? And if we don't have room in them, then what do they do when the hospitals are full? They create tents. We have plenty of room in the parks to create temporary type of facilities. If they're not canvas, they could be metal, that could be dismantled. But there are ways, and we think of ourselves as creative, but sometimes we're not creative enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, other answers to number 2, changes to services? Okay. Commissioner Montemayor, snuck in at the last minute.
I would just, I appreciate the comments regarding bringing folks into West Hollywood. I too support the concept. I would just say, as someone who's worked on this for years and years, the cost to do those types of services can be astronomical compared to partnering with service providers that the city already does. The cost is significantly less, and it's a far more effective strategy. I think, for those of us who live in West Hollywood, we all feel and see that there are unhoused folks on our streets, but comparatively to other municipalities, it is far less. And those are cities, including the city of Los Angeles, who do not partner in the same way with nonprofits like the City of West Hollywood does. The strategy is far more effective. Obviously, West Hollywood is smaller, but as we all know, West Hollywood strategies have always been replicated elsewhere on a whole host of issues. So I would just recommend that the approach that the city has taken is a working approach. If anything, the funding should be increased to continue to execute on what it's doing.
Thank you. So the last question, and I think it ties in with some of the things you brought up, number 2, but what barriers might there be to your constituency accessing available services?
Commissioner Montemurro.
Commissioner Ayers' comments earlier, I think, were spot on, particularly on this question. I have so many friends and colleagues who live in this city who are not insiders like we all are, who are very much in the know about everything. And I'm sure all of us are relied upon by our friends to provide information on how the city works, or election time questions around all those sort of things. I think if anything, the city, through its RFP process and with the third-party nonprofit partners, should really look into how to communicate directly with our residents. It was noted earlier regarding mailings for the rent stabilized residents, but I think there's just a lot of residents who don't fully understand the scope of services that are available to them, or are not fully understanding of what the city provides for folks who are in need. They may not necessarily need those services, but have a lack of understanding on what the city's approach is on homelessness or rental assistance, how to provide that social safety net. So I would just recommend that the city think about how it can communicate its strategy, because it's an effective one, to a wider audience. We've done PSAs and all sorts of creative things, whether it be video. I think there's just a lot to do. So perhaps this department should consult with the communications team and see how they can, really magnify this message so that everyone's aware of what we do.
Thank you.
Great. I see Commissioner Topshit.
Thank you, Chair. David, it's nice to see you.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing all these wonderful programs that some of them that I had no idea that they exist, to be honest with you. And I'm not surprised with the level of services that the city can provide to the constituents, but I'm really pleased to see all these different aspects and areas that these programs are able to cover. So one of the, I think the main challenges or barriers could be the language barrier. So speaking about the Russian, speaking community and Russian speaking elderly community, that's the main challenge, because dealing with my own parents, I know if it wasn't for me, they would just probably have a lot of difficulties to, navigate throughout the system and all other services. So I know Jewish Family Services, which I love so much. They provide absolutely incredible services to the community, and the Bet Zedek Legal Services. So these two groups, I know they have Russian speaking staff and they're able to, and also CES, although they are not on the list because they're a different type of agency, but CES also has a Russian speaking person. I wonder if the other, and not just speaking about only Russian speaking, but also Spanish speaking staff. Obviously, Spanish is more commonly used. It's second language. A lot of people speak Spanish, staff members, but I wonder if these services are available also to those who speak Russian, and maybe through the bulletins or some other resources. Or maybe they have a staff representative or the translator services or something like that. I report, maybe goes back to the question number, maybe 1 or 2, I can't recall now, but expanding the legal services, as you mentioned, that's the legal services, because I know Ala Chesnak is the only, and again, speaking Russian speaking person, or maybe she's the only person who covers West Hollywood. Definitely, it would be great to have 2 or maybe even 3 staff attorneys that would cover the area, considering this, post-COVID especially period, that will probably have a spike of all type of eviction cases or something. So I would say language barrier, and I want to echo what Commissioner Ayers mentioned, and I appreciate that. The kind of a technical thing, Zoom meetings. Again, speaking about my experience with my parents, some of the doctor's appointments or social security appointments are through Zoom, or so how these elderly people who are not, they don't know how to use computers. And again, speaking about Russian speaking communities or a community, or they don't know the language and they don't know how computers would work. So I think that those 2 challenges I would definitely identify, or barriers, and also kind of the trust of the person who contacts them or knocks on the door. And plus, is it safe? Because we hear, we all know things changed in West Hollywood. We all hear reports how things are not maybe as safe as used to be before. So in knocking on somebody's door, maybe with a good intent to deliver the program to the constituent directly, but that person's not going to open the door for 2 reasons. First, concerns of safety and security, and the second reason is, again, the language barrier. Maybe somebody speaks in English and the person who lives there is Spanish speaking only or Russian speaking only, right? So that's another thing. And again, because my parents live in a building where it's secured and everything, but sometimes people go and knock on the door and they say, "Oh, we have this bulletin, we have something, we want to talk to you about it," and they're afraid to open the door. So how we resolve this thing, the trust and the safety. So these are my comments about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Commissioner Kerpes.
I would agree with everything that I've heard so far tonight on all of the questions and answers. I just wanted to add another one, and maybe this doesn't fall exactly in social services, but for housing, to share it with. It's very difficult to access affordable housing. People don't know even how to do it. It's very complicated to, go to this list and that list and the city's list and this building's list and Section 8 and, downtown with the county. So some sort of education around that, along with all the other things that have been mentioned tonight.
Great, thank you.
Additional comments? I do not see. None? Nope. All right. Number 3 was a quiet one.
Okay. If we could ask you to actually nominate and vote on your representative, it would be for the meeting, and we will provide a summary of the input tonight for reference by that representative at the meeting. Of course, you're all welcome to attend the meeting as well. And this really is the beginning of our input process. We're going to have 2 public hearings. There'll be many more opportunities. So if you think, oh my gosh, I should have mentioned this, or I want to stress this, there's more chances to attend and to provide input. So first, just thank you so much for all your great input tonight. And if we could have you formally choose your representative, it would be appreciated.
Thank you, David. Does anyone want to make a nomination? Commissioner Montemayor.
I would be curious if Commissioner Ayers would be interested.
I would be very interested in it.
Well, I would be happy to nominate Commissioner Ayers.
Thank you.
A first and a second from Commissioner Kerpes. I don't know if we need a formal vote, but if we want to all nod in agreement, if we are approving of Commissioner Ayers representing us at the Tuesday, March 8th Human Services meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
I see at least a majority there. So congratulations, Commissioner Ayers. We appreciate your
Thank you.
service. Commissioner Kirby, yes.
I just have a question for David real quickly. David, when this process, you said that this is kind of the beginning of the process. When does this process end and the RFP actually goes out for various services?
So we take the approval of the RFP document to the Human Services Commission at their April meeting, goes to council at their May 2nd meeting, and we release it May 4th. You know, that's the other thing. We always want to open it up and receive proposals from new providers. So, you know, truly, if you know an organization that you think, you know what, they know West Hollywood, they have something valuable to offer. The requirement is that they are a nonprofit 501c3, but you can shoot a name and, you know, contact to me. We have a list literally of who once this is released, May 4th, we'll shoot it out, of course, to all of the currently contracted agencies, and then to the list of interested. So if there's agencies that you'd like us to that you'd like them to submit a proposal, please do. So anyway, May 4th, it'll be released. We'll have what we call a bidders conference on May 11th, where potential applicants will come and be able to ask questions of the process.
Thank you. And David, I have a comment as well. I've mentioned it to several of our council members, I think, in the past, but one of the barriers I think that I've seen to getting new providers in is some of the barriers of being fully established, and audits and a lot of the kind of technical paperwork. And this is totally self-serving, and I'll put that out there, that I run a small nonprofit that serves the unhoused communities. And what the state has done really well is mini grants for some of the smaller nonprofits that don't have the infrastructure to, do full audits and spend all this money. They do smaller dollar with less strings attached, which I think might be something for the city to look at as well. Because I know there's a lot of smaller nonprofits like mine that would want to jump in, and I think it would be a potential way to grow the nonprofits into ones that might be bigger service providers in the future, but maybe need some baby steps to get there, and the city can potentially help that way.
And you're absolutely correct. There are requirements that come with, government funding for a government agency. And you're right. It can be challenging for the real grassroots organizations. I mean, our team, really, for one thing, anybody that we recommend to council's contract with, we want them to be successful, and we'll get in there and, roll up our sleeves. We have a fiscal consultant that can assist organizations who don't have their fiscal systems in place, but it's not to discount that there are a lot of requirements. And you noted your suggestion about small grants. That's come up before. So yeah, we need to take another look at that.
Anytime you want to talk offline, I'm happy to do that as well.
Yeah. Thank you all so much again.
I wanted to quickly ask before we go, David. Any of the services that provide, any of these agencies provide services to the household directly? People with, let's say, disabilities or seniors that would need kind of a help with household matters, even like cleaning the apartment maybe once in a while. I wonder if one of these groups ever provide services like that, or changing the light bulbs or anything like that. So it just comes up to my mind.
We do have services that are provided in home and address some of the things that you mentioned. I think we could always use more through JFS. We do provide that, and also through the Disabilities Community Resource Center. And those are we get a budget with various lines for funding, and those are the ones that run out fastest. Folks who need in-home assistance for some kind of daily activities of living. So we have some. We could always use more.
Thank you. Good to know.
Any other final questions or comments for David? All right. Thank you, David.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, you as well. All right, moving on, we are at items from staff. Do we have any staff comments?
Yes, thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you to David for coming tonight and getting the commission's input. As anyone who's been here a while knows, that he and his staff just do absolutely extraordinary work for the community. So thank you again, David. And the discussion was very helpful to me too. Just following up on what Vice Chair Copeland brought up about security. Actually, there is a regulation specifically related to an incentive about that. And I think it ties into what Commissioner Harris and other commissioners talked about with outreach and making sure that people know these things. So in the spirit of that comment, I'll come back on the 24th with a brief presentation about that specific regulation. And perhaps going forward, when we have time on the schedule, I'll come back with items that of interest so that the community can learn about those things through these meetings. And of course, we also will do our continued outreach through our newsletter. And I do think that we'll be doing extended outreach in the future to more properties as we expand the registration program that was just approved by council. And I did forget to mention in my report, it is in the look ahead calendar in the packet, but at Commissioner Topshian's suggestion at the last meeting regarding a code compliance division presentation, they very graciously agreed to appear at the April 14th meeting. So we will get a presentation then. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Wonderful. Moving on, do we have any public comments, Mr. Sim?
No public speakers at this time.
None. Okie dokie. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Ayers.
I just want to quickly thank city staff for visiting the Senior Advisory Board yesterday and giving a presentation on housing to them. I got really positive feedback from one of the members saying that it was information that they really appreciated hearing. And, you know, as our community leaders on the Senior Advisory Board, I think it goes a long way to educating them on the services available. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Other comments, commissioners? I do not see any. I want to myself thank staff for that presentation. David, that was helpful, and I think we probably all learned something new that we didn't know about. And as Commissioner Montemurro said, I think are all kind of targets for people in the city who ask us questions, because we do know a lot of what's going on. So having even more knowledge is even better. I want to give some personal news. I just closed a deal in Glendale, which is one of my clients, on an affordable housing senior project in downtown Glendale. It's going to be 130 senior citizen units from 30 to 80% of the area median income. And I'm going to the groundbreaking in a week or two. So it's really cool. I get to do some cool work in my job, and sometimes it actually turns out and we get stuff done. So, and I know West Hollywood does just as much good stuff as Glendale, but it's a fun story. And we should celebrate affordable housing wherever it is in our region, because we need so much more of it. We are now at the end of this meeting. This meeting is adjourned. We are adjourning in honor and recognition of the people of Ukraine. We are now adjourning to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Rent Stabilization Commission. This will be held on March 10th, 2022 via teleconference. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Take care.
Good night.